And we're back. This is number 3. And in some ways it's number 1. Um, this is the first video on the channel The Inevitable Video Journal. It is the third The Inevitable Video Journal video. The first 2 were on my first account, Charzy, because I needed 24 hours before I could stream to this one, and I didn't feel like I could wait. The purpose of this channel, the purpose of this video series, is solely only to capture thoughts that I have in some sort of video journal format every day so that thoughts don't slip away from me. At least that is the intent. I'm quickly realizing that just because I capture my thoughts once a day doesn't mean I capture all my thoughts. It's now 10 o'clock p.m. and I've had so many conversations with folks today, so many different ideas between, visiting my mom, staying home with Lainey and Kate, and talking to other folks through my Facebook or through work that I'm not going to capture it all. And maybe I need to start keeping some notes on my phone about, if this is going to become a regular occurrence for me to be able to reference. So I might do that. I might start, just taking some notes. Here's a thing that you might want to discuss later or talk about or remember. Otherwise, they're going to slip away. And that's what we're trying to prevent. So that being said, I'm not exactly sure what I want to spend the time on tonight. And it might even be a very short video because I might not even really get into anything. Like I said, today has been so many different thoughts, so many different conversations that I don't know that I really want to dive too much into anything. The last couple of conversations that I had with myself for this Inevitable Video Journal. Number 1, I think I introduced a couple of topics. One of them is pluralism, the idea that everybody comes to the table with a different set of experiences and a different set of beliefs, and a healthy society is one that can tolerate all of those. Not tolerate, that allows and affords people to come together and discuss from various different perspectives. That's challenging, right? Because we want to believe that there is a right and a wrong, that there is the noble hero, and there is the selfish villain. But really, nobility and selfishness are kind of bound up in together in the concept of an individual with a single perspective. If everybody comes with their own perspectives, then of course they're the noble one in their story, but they're also selfish in that it's their story. And they're increasingly selfish when it's their story versus everybody else's. And the more they feel they believe in something, and the more they have to push back on the world around them, the more noble it is for them to do so. So it's a challenging thought, right? This pluralism. And I really went full circle with it today, trying to advocate for, well, if we really, if we're committed to the idea of everybody in society having a say, everybody's perspective being valid, especially if you want to talk about, something that we can't necessarily morally speak to, but, your material position in society or in the economy. If everybody's coming from a different background or a different status or stature with respect to their material success, then you can't necessarily say that one is a morally preferable position to another. So a rich man and a poor man, rich woman and a poor woman, anyone and anyone else with respect to one another in different material circumstances, it's not a moral judgment. And that's challenging. I will admit that's challenging. I always did feel that rich and poor was a moral statement of some kind. That the hoarding of wealth is an amoral position, and that that there can be poor in the world is an amoral fact, or immoral fact, I should say amoral. Um, but if you're going to commit to the idea of everybody comes to the table equally representing their position, which is necessary in something like a democracy, then you have to let go of that concept of one person just by nature of where they are standing, having the moral high ground. So there's a difficult choice to make, right? That itself presents a very difficult choice. Are we in this for everybody to be able to have an equal stake and an equal say, or is there good and evil? Yeah, or rather, no, not is there good and evil tied to a single perspective in that, but rather is good and evil specifically only the equal representation of all peoples. Because absolutely, you can still have good and evil. Good and evil is a real thing. If you are holding that it's good that everyone has representation, and it's evil that some people have more representation than others, then it's back to pluralism is good, democracy is good. We should make sure that there's equal representation. We should make sure that everybody has the opportunity to express themselves, no matter what position they're coming from. Yeah, I wasn't trying to dismiss that as a moral position. That is very much a moral position. I think that's a very good moral position. But you can also see how it's possible to get embedded in the moral position of a particular location within society. Anyway, if you're going to entertain the idea that we're all on this together, then you have to respect the position of the middle class, the working class, the middle class, the poor, the fabulously wealthy, and the homeless and destitute, with equal regard before the law, with equal regard in terms of how things are going to be conducted in a society. And if we're going to say, the mass of poor is a voice because of the size of their constituency, which matters more than the representation of the smaller, wealthier individuals, then you also have to admit that once you reach stasis, where the majority of people fall squarely in the middle, that you no longer have a moral judgment to make about the very rich and the very poor. As long as the majority of people are right here in the middle, the fact that there's poor and the fact that there's rich is just a consequence of distribution. It's not a moral thing. So if you're the type of person who grew up watching Robin Hood and you feel very strongly about the plight of a poor person, those living in poverty or homeless, or suffered a life event that has crippled them and put them in a very difficult financial situation, as long as they are a small sliver of the overall society, the moral thing is that we kind of expect that and allow that, right? At least from a state perspective. Now, individuals, this is where what role does the state play in this versus what role the public and the private. So absolutely, this is where individual responsibility for the community comes in. So as of right now, I think it's unfair to place all the burden of helping the many poor on those in the middle class, or those who are careerists and work for a living, the working class, I guess, to take care of those who are destitute because they feel morally compelled to do so, while others who are fabulously wealthy and have the resources to take care of probably the entire problem spend their money in other ways. I think that is an imbalanced way to look at it. But were there balance? we're, like I said, if it was an equal distribution bell curve with the majority of people doing well and some people doing exceptionally well and some people doing exceptionally poor, then by all means it becomes personal responsibility, personal obligation, personal taste, personal moral perspectives on who we want to take care of and how. But until we reach that middle ground, it's really not a discussion, because we're still not even to the point where the majority of people are being properly represented. So first we need to get to that point where things are balanced, and then we have pluralism, and we have democracy, and we have equal representation before the law, and then we can talk about whether or not we're all individually doing enough for the poor. But as long as the majority of resources are well over on one side, then we need to recognize that there's a societal problem and bring everything back to the middle, and then we can get back to our moral responsibilities as a citizenry. Anyway, complicated. I had other thoughts that I wanted to go down, but I don't remember what they were. It's just been a very challenging day for me to try to think of, maybe I need to understand that I'm in the business of representing other humans without respect to their position. Which obviously, I mean, duh, right? But without respect to their successful position. That's more challenging, I think. Like if you're saying like, will you please help me? I'm so poor. It's like, oh, of course I'm going to help you. I don't care that you're poor. It's please help me. I'm so rich. You don't need my help, but understanding and respecting that we're all in this together. It's a challenge. It's a challenge because, really that's what it's all about. We're all human beings. And there will always come a point, I think. So this is where I feel like I can feel my own perspective from a generational standpoint coming in, and that is, for whatever reason, my generation, I think it's true. I genuinely think it's true that we are experiencing a decrease in quality of life, a decrease in material circumstances. Things are getting more expensive while wages are staying the same. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. The middle class is trending downward. More and more people are going to be working at least one job full time to retirement and still being not well off, or working multiple jobs, uneven hours. Financially insecure, one major injury away from destitution. I do think that that's true. But there is this sense of unease. There is this sense of, I guess you could say, retribution in my generation, that we want to tip the scales. We want to, even if it involves way overdoing it, taking care of the least fortunate, because it's a combination of, we're seeing things move in the wrong direction, plus it's everything we've ever experienced, plus it's happening to us personally, so we're feeling it, plus it feels morally right? Like it feels good to take from the rich and give to the poor. But another thing to consider is that, so there's a common sentiment. The guillotine is a common symbol of the people right now, right? Like if we can afford to lose 1% of the workforce to COVID, then we can definitely, so that we can keep the economy going, then we can definitely afford to lose half a dozen billionaires if it means that we can redistribute the resources and everyone can suddenly be middle class, right? So it's almost like a moral obligation to the incredibly rich and make sure that everybody else is okay. But again, that I mean, maybe the majority of people say that tongue in cheek. I'm not sure. Um, if that was the way we decided to run this Earth, then we have to understand that people aren't going to want to play, right? If you can play by the rules and win, and even if you play by the rules and win, you're going to be, best case scenario, you do everything right, and you get really lucky, and you become fabulously wealthy, and so you lose your head because of it. Then the whole thing, there's no part of this. It becomes a sick parody. You don't want to participate in society, in life, if that's the way it goes. If the best thing that you can ever win is to lose your head, then there's no hope for any of us, right? Now it feels like I'm kind of turning the status quo on its head, right? Anyone can become a billionaire, and so we should all uphold the existing system by which it's possible to be a billionaire. I'm not really advocating for that either, because I don't know that there is such a thing as a moral billionaire. I don't know if you can hoard resources to that degree and justify it in any way. Aside from the fact that a normal distribution has outliers. Maybe that's the justification. Statistically, there will be outliers. That's true of a functioning system. It would be nice if we could clamp things. It would be nice if we could say, this is as poor as you can get. And in order to say, well, this is as poor as you can get, you probably also have to say, well, this is as rich as you can get, because that's how you keep the resources moving from the top to the bottom. You can still have winners, you can still have losers, but we can put bounds on it, right? There's a certain point at which material resources serve no individual purpose, and there's a certain point at which lack of resources is inhumanity. So that makes sense. But to just straight up say, work your way from here to there and then we'll murder you, that's not it. Again, not to say that everything is a matter of working harder than somebody else, but all the circumstances that lead to, well, if I work hard and I get lucky and I have make all the right decisions and I have all the things going for me throughout my life, then checking all these boxes, I die. Still not good. That means like you want to roll anything but 2 6s, right? And if that's the case, then you probably don't want to play. So we need to be respectful and equally inclusive to those who max out on whatever game we devise, just as we feel compelled to be toward those who fall through the cracks. So interesting. That's another perspective. As a game developer, I feel like if you do have somebody who is coming to an excess of resources through a system that you devise, then that means you need to make some minor edits to the system so that you don't have that all those resources going out improperly towards some drain. They probably could be better purposed if everybody had access to those resources. Then you have all these different people participate in the economy of your game instead of fewer and fewer people participating in the economy, fewer and fewer people taking full advantage of the features that are available, and a couple of individuals who can exploit the whole thing for their personal benefit, whatever that might be, which seems to be the direction that we occasionally go in, seem to be going in now. So rebalancing is in order. However, that rebalancing doesn't strictly mean taking resources from the top and putting them somewhere else. It means rebalancing the incentives and the institutions of the overall resource structure so that things fall back into a pattern of normalcy. Because again, if you just get in the habit of taking things from your players and redistributing them, then you will not have players anymore. Okay, feel like that's pretty well covered. Again, even though I conversation after conversation today, and even though I feel like I'm finally coming to an intellectual respect of this idea of we can't take anybody's one vote away from them, right? We can't take anybody's perspective for granted. Um, it still feels like, why am I treating this like an intellectual exercise when people are dying for lack of health care? This is not a game. This is a moral judgment. Like, we have to take care of people, especially people who are financially insecure or housing insecure or whatever you want to call it. The vulnerable people. You have to take care of them. That is our responsibility as human beings, to take care of one another, right? So of course that's a moral thing. So as after a while today, it was like, why am I treating this like it's an intellectual thing? This is still a moral thing. But again, human beings are bad at seeing a big picture from a single perspective. So we often have to look to data, and we have to look to precedent. We have to look to what's already happened, both quantitatively and qualitatively. And we can see throughout history that great suffering comes as a result of people being too extreme and absolutist about a particular perspective or moral platform, and not inclusive enough about other views, and pluralist society that is more stable and benefits everyone. I'm talking to the internet. I'm gonna stop now. No. Okay, so I'm gonna call it there. It's been 21 minutes. It's good enough. Hopefully, I'll have more thoughts tomorrow, and I will take some notes so that I don't forget. Have a good evening, everybody.